Slowly but surely, there we go. You are live. Welcome, welcome. Happy Monday, everyone, and happy, hopefully safe Monday to you, my dear co-host.
Yeah, we've got some bad weather coming in Texas here right now. We're under a tornado watch. So if I just disappear, I ran
Right,
for cover.
right.
Yeah, we had some bad weather Easter weekend too. Tornado touched down about 3 miles from the RV park. So, but we weren't here. But yeah, we've gotten a lot of rain, like we're saturated rain. But anyway, happy Monday. Guess what?
Scary.
Today is the last Monday of April.
It is. You are correct. I didn't
Mhm.
even pay attention to that, but you're right. It is.
It is.
Oh
It's like,
boy,
oh
where
my
has
God.
where has April gone? It seems like we
Where-
were just starting April off because, our first Monday of the month it was my birthday. So it just seems like that was only, a week or two ago, but my goodness, it's been almost a month.
It has. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Welcome to our Facebook pages. Welcome to our Instagram pages. Welcome to Twitch. And eventually we're going to get these uploaded to iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, and what's the other one? Spotify. There we go. Did I forget something? I don't think
Nope, I think you hit them all.
Okay, all right. Well, anyway, so I'm going to start this conversation out. So Becky and I were talking today, and just so you know, Becky and I are best friends. So we talk almost every
A
single
lot.
day. Yeah, a lot. So anyway, the course the question was posed. What are we going to talk about tonight? So we go through this, right? We always, if we don't have a guest plan, a lot of times we're like the day of, we're like, what are we going to do? What is our topic? How did we get onto this? We were talking about, so we titled it was a funny title we came up with. So that took us a while to come up with. We called this intentional movement. Walk this way or don't. Um, Apparently, I'm feeling very sassy on this last
You
Monday
were
of the
sassy
month.
this morning.
I was sassy this morning. But anyway, so yeah, anyway, how did we even get on that topic? Do you even remember?
Well, I think we were discussing the fact of like circadian rhythm and being outside and just the movement of I was doing my meal prep and I was moving about the kitchen and we were discussing the fact of, whether that counted as movement
Mhm.
or not.
Right.
Because that's one of the things I do every Monday, right? Is my meal prep, or I'm up and down the stairs chasing kids, right? And so yeah, I think that's what started the conversation. Was we were just discussing the fact of kind of how the day was going, and you were walking back and forth doing laundry and
Yep.
all of that, and it's like, well, it all counts, but then we were discussing the different types and why it matters, and we're like, "E- everyone should be moving, but
Right. Well, and one of the things, and I'm going to say this right up front, that I told you, I had a coach one time, a functional what was that coach? A functional F FN
FDN, wasn't it?
FDN. Yes, I think so. Yes. Tell me, well, not just me. It was in a group setting, but that walking around your house didn't count. And I remember feeling kind of defeated. Now, this was earlier on in my healing journey when I was just, I had just come off of Googling like keto and all that stuff. And when I heard that, it was so disheartening because I, before we moved into our travel trailer, right, we had a house and I was always moving around my house, cleaning and mopping and cleaning the bath. Like there was always movement happening, and it was disheartening to say the least to hear that. And since then, I've come to find out there are so many types of movements. And that's what you and I really were kind of had this whole conversation this morning about those different types of movements and kind of the benefits to it. But you know what? Movement is good.
Yeah. Well, and that's where that NEAT, right, that non-exercise activity, does come into play. So even though it's not, structured, it's still a huge hidden player because it's not as though you were a couch potato, and when we look at the metabolism side of things, it really does end up and make a difference. It doesn't have to be this movement outside and structured, and it's simply vacuuming your floor, cleaning your house, standing, fidgeting, doing dishes. When I end up and I do my meal prep, right, I'm from one counter to the other counter to the oven to getting the containers out of the cupboard. I'm constantly moving. Now granted, it's not like I'm doing it all day, right, but even back and forth, walking to the laundry room, hauling a basket of, laundry Saturday to the living room. Normally my daughter does laundry, but I was doing it on Saturday. And, just that activity, right? It all ends up and adds up. So anyone that is going to tell you that that type of activity doesn't count can go take a hike.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Well, and definitely. And I mean, functional movement, that's what we're talking about, and it's essential. You can do something as simple as when you're making your coffee and it's brewing, walk around your kitchen.
Mm-hmm. Well, just the mobility work, right? When you talk about the functionality or the restorative side of things, and just the aspect of, like you said, when you're making your coffee, there's things that you can end up and do that count as activity, count as a workout, maybe end up and do some calf raises, or maybe do some counter push-ups while you're standing there. So it's not necessarily just always walking, but there's so much range of motion activities that end up and help with that mobility and range of motion. And we need that, one, as we age, to keep that mobility, but we also end up and need that, and I always take things here, but we need that for the fascia side of things to help with keeping that fascia system limber. And the more that we end up and we do that, the little chemical messengers, right, the minerals of the body, flow through this fascia system, this inner network of the body, to get the signals where they end up and they need to go. So having this type of movement and mobility is very important.
Absolutely. Even like stretching, which I did today. I'm 5'2", so I was stretching to reach this thing on the top shelf, and yeah, I mean, that was stretching. Like, that wasn't even, it's like it was good, and doing things like that, just it helps improve posture. Do some squats if you can. If you can't, stand there and lift your leg up and hang on to the counter. Just a lot of keeping your joints limber, basically, is what we're talking about with the functional movement. It's like a foundation. Sitting in a chair, I can kick my legs out, right, and lift my legs up, and I can even just doing this, like, that's a movement. And I'm sitting.
Even leaning to the side and stretching, that helps the spine and the core. It really helps to engage the core too.
Absolutely. So that's like a foundation that we were talking about. And then we get into like the strength-based movement. And I know you have made a purchase recently.
Yeah. So a lot of people have been asking me on Instagram specifically. So Instagram friends, hopefully you're listening tonight, because I told y'all I would make a post, but instead we're going to end up and talk about it. The weighted vest. So I have been doing my weighted walks in the morning. Now, obviously I'm not, out walking marathon speed or marathon distance, right? It's just a nice, easy, light morning walk, but it's putting me under that resistance. It helps me to clear my head, one, just to go and move and, get some fresh air and get that early morning light. And obviously I don't do it fasted, right? I've already ate at this point, but I put my vest on. Now, there is also a difference in men versus women with vests, but using the weight of a vest does help with, one, blood sugar control. It helps with muscles. You wouldn't think necessarily that your whole body, right, has to engage, but just the act of walking is engaging a lot of those larger muscles. And then when you add that resistance to your body, think of it also as someone that, is like on a weight loss journey, right? What they say, every 20 pounds ends up and adds 5 pounds of pressure to your joints or something to that effect, but you're doing it structured, right? So I go, maybe some days it's 5 minutes, some days it's 15. After my husband and daughter, are doing their thing, essentially, I throw my vest on. It sits on my kitchen counter. I throw it on in the morning and out the door I go. So the difference, for those on Instagram, pay attention. The difference is, because I've had a lot of questions in regards of men versus women, the structure of our body, the weight range of a vest, the adjustability, the compression. I mean, there's been so many questions. So I'm going to end up and run through all of your questions. Anyone that is watching YouTube or Instagram, if you have questions in regards of movement, feel free to drop them in the chat. If you like a certain type of movement, put that in there as well. The fit of a vest. So the difference in men and women, I told you I couldn't talk earlier. Men's vests tend to end up and be a little bit broader. They have a broader chest. They're broader, so they end up. Now, there are some that, like mine, has the 2 adjustable straps in the front. Women, we tend to end up and be a little bit more narrow frame on the top. Our bottom side, hip down, tend to end up and be a little bit larger. So the important thing with the vest is making sure that, one, it fits you, it adjusts to you, because you don't want it, shifting, rubbing, bouncing around essentially while you're walking. It will end up and create some chafing, wearing. So making sure that it's fitting comfortable. The other thing with the vest, some of them, the ruck type vests, just have the weight in the back. It's not evenly distributed. Women, you want more of that weight distribution, front and back. So like the front of mine, the straps are weighted, as well as the back. Now, mine is a 20 pound. And I've had people ask, why did I end up and go that high? Because they do have vests that are like 5, 10, 15, or I think it's 16 pounds. Typically, where you end up and you want to start is like 10% of your body weight. The reason I went up and kind of surpassed that was I was already doing resistance training. I was already putting my body under resistance in the dungeon. And I was putting that weight on my shoulders. I was putting, using more full body, right? I did full body, I did upper body, I did lower body. So I was working a lot of those same muscle groups that someone that maybe is just starting out. So put that into consideration when you're looking at this. Yes, it's a great way to get started, is with a 5-10 pound vest, but put that into consideration too. The other aspect is looking at compression. So women specifically, you don't want necessarily the compression, depending. And I say depending because if you're doing longer distance, compression can be good. But if you're just looking at it for like an everyday out walk type thing, that compression will end up and interfere with the lymphatic system. So for me, it's more of getting that, again, that fascia system and getting the lymphatic and, getting that flow going versus making sure that I have the compression to walk distance. So like we have a 50-mile march that Nebraska does every year from Lincoln to Omaha. That is where compression can come into play, is because you're walking 50 miles, right? But for someone like me that's walking maybe a mile, 2 miles, or even, a little bit more like on the weekend, I don't need that compression. So that's a little bit of the things to end up and look at in the resistance vest or weighted vest.
Well, and if you approach strength-based movement as well, yes, it's good to gain muscle, but it's also about feeling strong and capable in your everyday life. I mean, ask yourself, if you fall down, can you get back up? I mean, that's strength. So it's and muscle burns more calories than fat, even when you're resting.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, and the space that it ends up and it takes up, right? So that's the other thing with like the vest and being able to have one that is adjustable, because as you're using these larger muscle groups and you're putting that resistance, you're going to end up and build that lean muscle mass, but you may end up and lose the fat. So you want to make sure that it's able to be adjusted as your body composition changes.
Yeah, if you Google what does 1 pound of fat looks like versus 1 pound of muscle, fat is going to take up way more volume than what the muscle does. And you might weigh the same, right? I just had a friend of mine on social media, and she was really down Friday about dreading the scale. And she is hitting the gym, and she has hit the gym for the last, I think, year and a half, 2 years, 3 years almost. She's killing it. And she's so discouraged with the scale. And her and I were kind of going back and forth. And I'm like, but the volume of your muscle isn't taking up as much as what the fat did. And she was quite large. So it's like, and give yourself permission. I kind of helped her give herself permission to weigh once a month. And in doing so, I gave myself permission to weigh once a month instead of every week, because I was starting down that dread of getting on the scale myself. But I'm going to turn us back to our topic again. And another one is cardio, heart happiness, right? It's where you can burn calories, you get that endorphin, some fun stuff. Dance around your kitchen. That's some cardio, and you're having fun.
Exactly. Well, and that energy release that comes with it, right? So when we look at that movement, if you are dancing and just creating this, flow, that ends up and helps the energy and the mood. And I mean, there's so much that comes along with the gains on that side of it, in restoring the body's, energy frequency, right?
Yep. And it helps clear your head, right? And when your head's clear, you get creative, and that endorphin release, and now you're starting to have fun. Go dance If you don't want to go dance, I would never go out socially to dance. But I can dance around outside on my property by myself. My husband's out there, and then I'm singing at the top of my lungs too, because I have my music on and he can hear me singing, and he's like, "You can't sing," and I'm like, "I don't care," because I'm out there having fun, and I'm releasing endorphins, and I'm moving, and and so forth. So yeah, it's kind of a neat, different mindset of moving, right? That's kind of what we're after tonight.
Well, it ends up and it restores the body. And I think the biggest, hopefully the takeaway that everyone takes away from tonight is just move, right? Singing, dancing, activating that parasympathetic side of the nervous system, the stress management, recovery. I mean, there's just that like you said, the endorphins, but the mental health side of just moving. I mean, it doesn't have to be, they actually, I know around where you used to live and more south than anything, they end up and they have that like weekly in the park. People will just end up and go and they dance and they move. And I mean, I have another friend that lives down there and she'll go to that. And oh my gosh, just the benefits that she sees, with it's like a weight lifted off of the body.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
here's some playful movement that I did. Well, actually, I do this every time we're out on our property. Is I kind of walk along, and I'm looking at wildflowers, and I'm taking pictures of wildflowers, and it's like, oh, I like the way these are bunched up, and I take a picture, and then I keep walking, and it's like, oh, there's a purple one wildflower. I'm gonna take a picture of that. But it's being in nature, it's walking, it was enjoyable being able to, look at these wildflowers. So you could go for a nice little stroll in the evening. And even if you're in a subdivision like I used to be, look at everybody's, landscaping and start thinking of ideas and just fun things like that. But movement isn't just about goals. It's also about moments. And when you get so dogmatic in that, you're missing some beautiful moments.
It helps us to slow down and really be present with the surroundings.
So let's talk about something in your wheelhouse, the circadian movement.
Yes. So the different types of, or timing, I should end up and say, of circadian movement. A lot of people are like, circadian, talks about light. But what am I talking about when I'm talking about circadian movement? So the timing of your movement, based on the body's natural rhythms, and syncing that clock. Many people don't end up and look at it that way, but it really does end up and crave certain types of movement at specific times throughout the day. So just like we were talking about, the singing, the dancing, these, natural movements or the biological clock of the body, and looks for that too. And so it will help with the energy. It helps with metabolism, recovery, sleep. You don't want to end up and do a high intensity workout, right, in the evening time, right? That's the time that we should end up and be winding down, and I'll discuss that. But more of like midday is when you would end up and want to do that. Morning time, you want this light activation type movement. Like I said, light walks, stretching, mobility flow, dancing, gentle yoga. That would all end up be the time. Now, go ahead.
No, I'm agreeing with you. No, I'm like, yeah, generally, I'm like, yeah.
It just kind of wakes your body up naturally, right? And starts this internal clock. And so, bonus perk of that, right, is the way that I kind of ended up and started was my morning sunrise grounding walks. I would just end up and walk around the yard. nothing structured, nothing specific, just kind of wandering aimlessly around the yard, walking around the
Barefoot,
house,
barefoot,
barefoot, yeah, grounding.
barefoot. Yeah.
And so that type of movement, it helps the cortisol from not like spiking. Cortisol isn't necessarily bad. It's what wakes us up and we get this, gradual rise. But when it ends up and it peaks and then people have blood sugar, dawn effect and that whole realm. But where if you create this gentle, natural soothing rise, you get a boost of alertness, you get the focus, your mood is naturally enhancing, even if it's like between sunrise and UVA, because the UVA ends up and helps with the serotonin and the dopamine and, that whole side. So getting out and doing that, I can't tell you how many times, I've been on the phone and midday, right? And I'm walking out to the mailbox and I do it grounded.
Yes,
That's
she
another
does,
time.
because it's me she's talking to. And yes, she's barefoot. Yes, she's on the phone. Yes, the wind is blowing. And yes, she's going out to her mail to get the mail, or the
Yeah.
mailbox to get the mail. So I can testify that is true.
So, and especially this time of year because it's the vitamin D time of the day, right? But that would end up to be the time of day essentially from like 10 to 2 that you want to do these higher intensity cardio. You want to do the kettlebell, you want to do, a lot of these things that are going to increase that core body temperature. Yes, there's a lot of benefits when it comes to metabolic function at that time of day too. Many times, most people have their larger meal midday. That'll help to end up and bring that glucose down or maintain that glucose too. So that type of movement, you end up and you get the UVB, you're building that vitamin D, you're just getting a lot of benefits when you're out at that time of the day. So, and then evening time, you go out a lot at sunset.
Yes.
Going for an evening stroll. I took Instagram on, it's maybe been a few weeks ago. I took Instagram on an evening walk with me. I just simply walked, a mile down the road, up and down the hill. It wasn't anything, increasing heart rate wise or anything along that line, but it was just, I seen deer out on my walk. Watched the sunset. It was just nice to help with lowering that evening cortisol, stimulating the parasympathetic to help support the body to get into that rest and digest. It will also help again with depleting that blood sugar. You don't want high blood sugar because then you're not going to end up and have the melatonin, right? We don't want high insulin levels or high blood sugar levels when we're going to bed because we want the melatonin and the leptin to dock to the hypothalamus. So just going for a nice evening stroll, after your last meal of the day helps with, again, anchoring that circadian rhythm and aligning this movement with biology, but also with nature.
Well, have you ever, and I'm sure you've seen clients, where they're working out at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and they're like, I can't sleep, right? I'm questioning every life choice that I ever made when I go to bed. And it's like, well, because you just told your body to,
Yep.
right?
Yep. It's created a secondary cortisol response. So when you've worked out that late at night, because I've had people say, I work till 5 o'clock. By the time I end up and get to the gym, it's 7, 8 o'clock. And then you're creating a secondary cortisol response. Your blood sugar is going up. Your core body temperature is going up. So, there's a lot of these variables that are not allowing the body to align with this natural rhythm. Makes a difference.
It really does. So the movement I got in this weekend was I mowed. So we got a push mower. Yes, we got a push mower for 50 acres. No, I'm not mowing 50 acres, but there's areas where our big tractor can't get to. And the area I was mowing was around where our gate is up front. And it was very bumpy, very hilly, I had to stop and down, pick sticks up, get the sticks out of the way. I had to, it took me, and it really wasn't, it was two sections. Didn't, if I look at it, I'm thinking, why did that take you an hour? Well, because, right, it was uneven, I'm like I said, I'm 5'2". The what is the button that makes it propel? Self-propel. I'm running behind it. No joke. We didn't get the expensive one where you can change the different, we got one speed, Sherry runs, or I'm pushing and I am engaging the muscles and I'm pushing it and I'm pulling it and I'm pushing it and I'm pulling it. And so I got a lot of exercise in this weekend. And at the same time, I was getting my vitamin D in the sun. So it was like this huge win-win that I was. And where I would have dreaded that before, and jokingly, I'm like, oh, I get a mow again, right? Because this seems to be like every few days you can mow. It's the way this rain is and everything, but I'm not dreading it. And something I've noticed is my stamina is lasting more than what it was when we first got it and put it together a couple weeks ago. It was like, holy cow, like I had to keep stopping and resting. And I realized that I had been at it for 25 minutes before I finally went, oh, I got to let go. Like I got to stop for a minute and rest. And in 25 minutes of this pushing, and it's going up the hill, and stop, I got to pick this stick up. And it was a lot of movement, and it was good, but it builds, and the more I look at working on our property in a whole different light than I would have normally. And that's where knowing what the right movement is for somebody, and kind of tapping into that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because if I end up and I told you, that this is what I wanted you to do, and I wanted you to go walk 3 miles, and this is, I wanted each of those miles to be 14-minute miles, or, whatever, 12-minute miles, you name it, right? That's going to end up and be so much different. Some people are going to enjoy that. Some people are not going to enjoy that. Some people are going to be like, yeah, I can't do it, so I'm just not going to do it at all. Again, the biggest takeaway is find a piece of this that you enjoy and be consistent with it. Because every little bit, whether it's out mowing or out walking with a weighted vest or out just simply dancing in your yard at sunrise, it's all going to end up and play a role in your longevity, your muscle, and your agility.
Yeah. So I put a thing in the chat and it says, remember, movement doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And Becky and I aren't perfect at it. But April said, I'd like to wear the weighted vest doing house chores. The squats really burn a lot of any stored sugar. Oh, there you go, Becky.
I just said that's when I first got my weighted vest. That's what I ended up and I started with. I would just end up and wear it, a few minutes around the house. And I kind of built that time up to the point where, yes, I am using it also in the mornings when I go out and walk. But yeah, it truly does make a difference. Not going to lie.
And then when you're carrying heavy people's
right.
Children's up your stairs with the weighted vest, you get out of breath.
Yeah, my 25 pound weighted vest went to like 50 pounds.
Yeah,
it was a little intense.
I was like, why are you why are you breathing so heavy? She goes, I just went up the stairs carrying this kid.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing the weighted vest. And it was like, woo!
Yep.
There you go.
Little intense.
Yeah, that was like, really, Becky, did you just do that?
Well, it's like once you end up and you put it on, I was trying to explain it earlier, and I'm like, you put this weighted vest on, and anyone that has ever had like anxiety and used weighted products, like a weighted blanket or anything like that, once it's on, it just almost feels like this constant hug, if you will, and you almost forget that it's there. And so yeah, I go about my normal daily activity, and kind of like what April was saying, right? Cleaning your house, and you squat down to clean something, and you go to push yourself up, and it's like, oh. But yeah, I grabbed the kiddo, and I was like, up to nap we go. And halfway up my flights of stairs, I'm like, oh my goodness, why is there so much resistance to this? Oh yeah, ding dong, you're wearing the vest.
Yeah, I would love to get one. I literally would have no clue where I would put that in a camper right now. So that's not going to happen. But I have a question for you. So how heavy is your weighted vest?
25 pound.
Okay. So when you first put it on, did you think, oh my goodness, this is how I felt when I was 25 pounds heavier?
Yeah. Yes, but no, right? So it wasn't like a flip of the switch, right? It was this gradual weight gain. And so that initial, right? It was like, but it was that constant. It's like, oh my gosh, is this why, I felt like crap? Is because I was carrying this extra weight. I was carrying, not necessarily on my shoulders as a vest, but just overall on my body. And yes, I can take the vest off and I can release that. But when I had that weight, I couldn't. It wasn't like I could just unzip the suit and take it off.
Right.
So
yeah, I notice as I'm shrinking, losing weight, that stamina and the movement is getting enough that my husband has mentioned that he's noticed how I'm moving different. Right. And you don't realize that when you're carrying large amounts of weight. I mean, I remember what it was like when I was 275 pounds plus, and we would go into Home Depot, and I would look for the nearest thing to try and sit on because I couldn't. Walking around Home Depot was too much. And it's like, oh, good, there's a bunch of bags of cement. Let's sit on it while my husband's walking, doing whatever he's looking for. And I remember that it was always, no matter where we went, it was always about finding a place to have to sit because I couldn't stand for long periods of time. I couldn't, because of that kind of weight on my body was just so much.
Yeah, it's intense, but like I said, I think the difference is once I start to feel, yes, you want to get to that fatigue point with muscle, right? You want to end up and get to that point where your body's going to help with building the strength. But like you said, when you were at your heaviest or when you had that weight, it wasn't like you could escape it. I can escape my vest. I can take it off if, that pressure gets too intense. And that's, like I said, that's one of the things that just the movement I would say helped the most, right? It wasn't necessarily any fancy, strength training in the gym. It was just moving the body that helped with that weight loss.
Well, I've got some fun tips for getting you moving. So again, waiting for your coffee to brew, stretch those hamstrings, right? If you're sitting there watching Netflix, do some seated twists or some leg lifts during the opening credits the whole time. Don't skip over them. Uh, watch them and do your leg lifts. If you like to dance like nobody's watching, because they probably aren't, especially in your own house. So blast your favorite tunes and have a dance party. Grooving in the kitchen moves, and it counts as cardio. Don't think of movement in hours, think of them in minutes. Movement bursts just throughout the day. Squat, leg lifts while you're brushing your teeth, calf raises while waiting for the microwave, or if you're standing in front of the mirror, right? Have fun. Take a friend along and just walk and talk. Nobody cares that you're walking along and talking, right? Skip if you can, hop if you can. Rediscover that inner child if you want to. I haven't skipped and I don't know how long, and I may have to try that. That's actually sounds like fun, doesn't it? And it'll burn calories too. So just keep it interesting. Look for fun moments. Look for the sunset. Look for the sunrise. Instead of, give yourself permission to walk to the refrigerator, do 3 squats, and turn around, walk away. You didn't need that to open it anyway. Like Becky, walk to the mailbox. So just some fun little tips, mix it up, have some fun with it, laugh, but just move.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing for many people, right? Is it's windy out, so I'll just end up into it tomorrow, or it's raining, so I'm not going to end up and go to the park and walk. There's so many things that we can end up and get in our way of doing that sometimes if we just, I've been known to even walk laps. Like I'll go from my kitchen and I walk around the dining room table and into the living room, and I literally make like a little track, if you will. And all those steps end up and add up. No, I don't shoot for a certain step count or anything along those lines, but if I can't get, because there are days where, I don't get outside and walk, my first thing, and I end up and I do it around the house. Like April said, just simply whether you're cleaning house or you just do it inside, you can move. Get out of your way of making excuses.
I've told my mother, I'm like, Mom, go to Walmart and walk around. And I have to hang on to the, to the cart. And I'm like, okay, but you're still moving. You're still walking around. Go do that. A lot of times when I go into grocery shop, I walk down aisles that there is nothing I'm going to buy down that aisle, but I'm still walking down that aisle, right? I'm moving. And of course, my Apple Watch does not pick up any steps when you're pushing a grocery cart. Does anybody else? Can you raise your hand and go, yeah, no steps? Like, because I'm not swinging my arm, right? So it doesn't count. But you know what? I know that I'm moving.
Yeah.
So just um, fun steps that way. In fact, I'm going to grocery shop tomorrow. So I'm going to be getting in some more intentional steps and so forth. So hopefully this was a fun one. Yeah, we were trying to be a little cheeky this morning, a little sarcasm with walk this way or don't. And hopefully we gave you a little bit of motivation where you feel like, you know what, I can do a little bit of movement. I can get that in every single day. And you don't have to be, it's not a drudgery. It's not that, oh my gosh, I have to go for, 45 minutes.
Yeah, it's just like we said about getting the body to move. The body was designed to move. It wasn't necessarily meant to be sedentary. So don't just survive and, be a little couch potato. Make the body thrive. Be intentional with your movement and take every little moment that you end up and you have, right? To just do something. Maybe that's standing. Maybe that's, just swaying while you're standing there, or whatever you end up you have to do in life, make it with meaning, make it with purpose, and make it with the intention of reconnecting with the rhythm that you were born with. So keep moving, stay curious.
And I guess at that, we will see you next week. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. We love comments. We do read them. And every time you subscribe, or isn't there something else you can do, like a notification or a bell or something you can do?
Subscribe, and you can end up and set the reminders, because we go live every Monday, and we do have some guests coming up in May, so you won't want to miss out on those.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, well, happy last Monday of April 2025, and get out there and do some movement, and we will see you all next week. Thanks so much.